The fate of an effort to recall California's Democratic governor is set to be announced next week. Governor Gavin Newsom has been under scrutiny for his pandemic response. Republican organizers say they've submitted over 2 million signatures supporting a move to oust him. County elections officials need to verify about 1.5 million signatures to trigger a special election. The deadline to verify signatures is next Thursday. The governor has launched a petition of his own opposing the recall. But according to the Sacramento Bee, some experts say the unusual petition could be, quote, misleading to voters. For more, let's bring in Sophia Bollag. She's a California politics reporter for the Sacramento Bee. Sophia, I know you've joined the program a few times on this story, so thanks again for being with us. Can you tell us what the latest is on the recall effort against Governor Newsom?
Yeah, so as you just mentioned, we are expecting to get an update on the verified signature count probably in the next week or so. And that won't officially trigger the recall election, although we're expecting to hear that the recall supporters did indeed collect the number of signatures that they needed. I think people will be surprised if we find out that they didn't. It looks like they have more than enough. But even once that signature count comes in, people who signed the petition will have some time to remove their signatures if they choose. And then there are also a couple more deadlines in state law. The legislature will have to sort of consider the potential cost. The Department of Finance will have to make a formal cost estimate. And then the lieutenant governor will have to actually set the special election date. So there's still a number of additional deadlines beyond the one next week.
And Sophia, I mentioned this anti-recall petition that the governor has been circulating. Can you tell us what purpose that actually serves and what's behind some of these criticisms, calling it misleading?
Yeah, so the governor has been sending lots of emails to supporters in the last month or so since he launched his own formal anti-recall campaign. And one of the tactics he's been using, he sent out a petition, an anti-recall petition, asking supporters to sign and let his campaign know that they oppose the recall. And I talked to a number of experts about what they thought about that, people, political scientists, people who study voter behavior, and they said that that's probably going to be misleading for some voters because there's a lot of petition-related information coming at people right now in California. There was the official recall petition to gather signatures to put the recall on the ballot. And then there is going to be, as I just mentioned, a period of time when people who signed that petition can remove those signatures. And now the governor has his own sort of unofficial recall petition. I talked to the campaign, and they said it's really just to get information from supporters. They're collecting like names, email addresses, zip codes. And the experts I talked to said that, it's a very common tactic for campaigns to be collecting information in this way, including through something that they're calling a petition, even if they're not going to submit it to the government to address some sort of, problem that people are complaining about. But it could mislead people who might think that this is an avenue to try to, prevent the recall election from moving forward or something like that. It's not official. It's just a campaign tactic.
Oh, that's good to know. Good for voters to know as well. Well, people probably remember all the criticism that Newsom got for disregarding his own public safety restrictions in the pandemic. Now, though, the state has the lowest case rate in the continental U.S. So what kind of impact is that having on the recall effort?
Yeah, there hasn't been polling since those latest numbers that you're referencing that show that California has a really low case rate. But just generally sort of the mood here, at least where I am in Sacramento, things are starting to lighten up. People are going out, starting to go back out to restaurants and, see friends as people are getting vaccinated. California has vaccinated a significant portion of its population at this point. A little earlier this month, last week, the state opened up vaccine eligibility to everyone over age 16. So all California adults are now eligible to get vaccinated. And so, the effects of the pandemic really are starting to lessen here. And even though we haven't seen polling that's shown, exactly what impact that's having on Newsom's approval rating, it's possible he might see somewhat of a boost from that.
And Sophia, I kind of want to talk about some of the politics and some of these big issues that California is facing and how they intersect. I mean, last year, California experienced its worst wildfire season on record. Now it's experiencing drought. Can you tell us how Newsom's political vulnerabilities might be possibly influencing how he chooses to manage these big issues?
Yeah, so Newsom, like any governor, is going to be judged on how he manages the unfortunately many natural disasters that California faces. Basically, wildfire season, there's always a wildfire season in California. There are always cycles of extreme rain and extreme drought in California. That's not new, but things do seem to be getting worse. The governor talks a lot about climate change and how climate change is exacerbating the natural disasters like wildfires and droughts. His decisions on whether he declares a statewide drought, whether he, issues other executive orders, ordering people to conserve water, which he has not done at this point this year. But those decisions could potentially affect the way voters view him in a recall. He says that he's making decisions purely based on the best interests of California residents. But certainly he's a politician, all of those political considerations, he's well aware of those as well.
And Sophia, we just have a few seconds left here, but can you tell us about any other potential Democrats that might be challenging Newsom in this recall?
Yeah, so at this point, no major Democrats have announced their candidacy. There's been a lot of buzz about former Los Angeles Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa. He had previously run for governor. He ran in the primary in 2018 and lost to both Newsom and the ultimate Republican nominee, John Cox, who ended up facing off in the runoff general election that year. But Antonio Villaraigosa is the type of Democrat who might be eyeing a potential run. At this point, the experts that I've talked to say Villaraigosa and other major Democrats who might be contemplating a run probably wouldn't throw their hat in the ring yet. Newsom's approval ratings have dipped from a high that he saw earlier in the pandemic. They're now closer to pre-pandemic levels, but he's still above water in most polls and is not considered to be super vulnerable to the recall at this point, but certainly that could change.
All right, well, we'll be keeping an eye on California and what happens next week. Sophia Bollag, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.